Hello and welcome to the second part of Unit 1. Today we are going to talk about listening. The first question we're going to ponder is, what is listening? One thing we must understand is that there is a difference between listening and hearing. Listening is the complex process we use to make sense out of what we hear, while hearing is the physiological process of decoding sounds. So basically what this means is that listening is kind of the process of making sense of what people are telling us. So that means when we hear something that we're able to process it and we're able to understand what it is that they're saying. That means that we are listening. If we're hearing, what we're doing is that we are conducting that scientific process of decoding sounds. Vibrations hit the eardrums, electrical impulses to the brain, stuff like that. So with listening, there's only three main terms we need to focus on. The first one being paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is the art of putting it into your own words, what you thought you heard, and saying it back to the listener. So pretty much what that means is, let's say that you are in a math class and somebody's talking to you, or the teacher is talking to you and doing the lesson and teaching you what it is that you need to know about that math problem. And then you go home and then your parents ask what you learned today. Basically what you are going to do is you're going to paraphrase that information that you learned today. There's no way you're going to sit them down and going to be able to go over the same process with them word for word. So what you're going to do is cut it down and put it into words that you believe they'd understand. Rehearsing is pretending to listen when actually forming a response to what the speaker is saying. So we do a lot of rehearsing when people are talking to us. Maybe we're arguing with someone, and rather than listening to what it is that they're saying, what we're doing is we're practicing what it is that we're going to say. We're practicing what it is we're going to say back to them. And we're doing that in our mind. And then once they get done talking, we then come in and let them know how it is we feel. The last one, placating. Placating is going along with what the other person wants to do, although you disagree with it. Generally what you're doing is you're intentionally ignoring information that they are presenting. So what that means is that we sometimes go along with what other people want to do just to kind of get away from them. So kind of like you're at work and somebody comes with an idea of what to do. Let's say you might not necessarily like that person, but however, just to go along with what they're saying, just so you don't have to be next to them anymore, you'll placate to them. The second question we're going to look at is, why do we listen? What you're going to find out is that we listen for four main reasons. We listen for enjoyment, we listen to learn, we listen to evaluate, and we listen to empathize. So why is listening important? Well, you spend 80% of every day listening. 85% of what you learn in school is through listening. People are speaking 175 to 200 words per minute. However, you can listen to 600 to 1,000 words per minute. So what's happening with that space where words aren't being spoken? Well, normally this is where kind of that daydreaming comes in. You know, when people kind of talk to you and maybe your mind starts wandering and you start thinking about other things, generally that's because what people are saying is not in contact with how much you're actually able to listen. So generally, if people talk really slow, generally you might get bored and you might start thinking about other things. Same thing if people are talking too fast. If people talk too fast, well then comes frustration, and once again, your mind begins to wander. So what are some good nonverbal cues to show that people are listening to you? The first one, of course, is eye contact. If someone is looking at you, pretty good chance that they're probably listening to you. Another one is open posture or turning towards the speaker. Basically, as long as their arms are not folded or they're turned away from you, basically they're giving you their front then chances are they are listening to what it is you have to say. Another good form of nonverbal cue is nonverbal feedback. This is nodding or reacting with facial expressions. If you say something that's funny and somebody laughs, or you're telling a sad story and somebody has a long face or, begins to tear up, that's a pretty good indicator that they're probably listening to you. So if you looked at the last reason as to why people listen, you'd see that one of them was empathy. So what exactly is empathy? Well, empathy involves emotions. What that means to empathize with someone is to try and feel what he or she is feeling, rather than just think about or acknowledge those feelings. So pretty much what that means is that if we empathize with someone, we understand what they're going through, because most of the time we've been through those things ourselves. So in a lot of ways, areas we feel empathy is maybe if someone had a death in the family, if you yourself have gone through that feeling of loss, losing a family member, you're able to empathize with them. The last question we need to answer is, what is a listening barrier? So listening barriers are pretty much those things that prevent us from listening. And there's 4 main barriers that we're going to look at. There's internal, external, speaker, and cultural barriers. First, we have internal barriers. Internal barriers are those things that are going on in our brains that are just preventing us from listening. One of those could be a personal agenda. That's really just anything that's going on in your brain, other things, other outside factors that are more important to think about right now than what the speaker has to talk about. Then there is emotional noise. Maybe you're just too happy to want to think today or listen to somebody else, or you got some things that are sad that are going on. Somebody just broke up with you, and really the last thing you want to do is listen to what other people are having to say right now. Speech rate versus thought rate. We talked about this with the whole daydreaming and how many words people are able to speak versus how much you're able to listen. Kind of goes along with that same thing. People who talk too slow generally might start to get bored and start to think about something else. Same thing if people talk too fast. People are talking too fast, you're not able to process what it is that they're saying, so then you just kind of tune them out and you start thinking about something else. Then the last thing kind of goes along with that, information overload. People are just giving you too much information. People are telling you too much stuff, and you just don't have that mental capacity to try and process it at this time. So you eventually start thinking about something else. External barriers are those outside factors that are preventing you from listening. There are auditory external barriers. Those are like the fire alarms, police sirens, somebody's cell phone going off, anything that distracts you from listening to what somebody else has to say. That's an external barrier. Visual external barriers occur. How people dress. Maybe they have really weird colored hair. Their overall appearance is, a distraction. That's an external barrier. And then there's other things like, if you're in a room that where it smells like BO in there, or, there's somebody, touch is another external barrier. Somebody's constantly patting you on the back or tapping you on the shoulder. Or you eat something, you're snacking in class, and all of a sudden you take a bite of something and it tastes real bad. Those things are going to prevent you from listening. Maybe the speaker themselves are going to prevent you from listening. Once again, maybe the speaker is wearing an outfit that is just a distraction. Maybe they have an accent, or maybe there's the way they use grammar is a distraction. The way they deliver is a barrier. They talk too fast. They talk too slow. They talk so quiet you can barely hear them. They have a high-pitched voice. All those can be barriers. And then, of course, mannerisms. Maybe they use a lot of hand gestures. Maybe they use too many hand gestures. Maybe they just stand there with their arms at their side all the time, and that's a distraction in itself. Finally, the last one could be some cultural barriers. Kind of goes along the same lines with speaker barriers. Maybe you're critical of the speaker because of accents or appearance. Maybe there's a certain race or culture of people that are presenting. Maybe the way that they dress and their culture is a distraction. It'll prevent you from listening to them. Maybe what they believe in, maybe their religious beliefs don't, fall in line with what you believe. So you're less likely to listen to what it is they have to say. All that can fall under cultural barriers. So that's it. This is the notes over the listening section. I hope you got everything written down. If not, make sure and go back and get those parts that you missed.